All right. Welcome back to the Green Logbook. Joined here with my man Josh Cantrell from MVMT Financial. How you doing, Josh?
Hey, what's up, Vic? It's good to see you, man. It's good to be on here, and it's a beautiful Friday the 13th, and for watching. And you forgot tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so if you have not remembered that, you still got time to go get some chocolates, some flowers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, dude. I just stopped by the flower shop here and picked something up. So the thing is, I came home and I don't have a vase. So that's you got to make sure you have everything in place, man, before you do any of that stuff. So I got to go out afterwards and get that stuff. But no, good reminder. So you're not in the hot seat when you wake up tomorrow. So good stuff. So today is going to be all about money talk, finance talk. I know finances, but I cannot talk to folks about finances. I'm not a financial strategist or anything like that. I don't have a license or anything. I know how to do my finances, and that's kind of where it ends. So, but I wanted to bring you on, and really we connected, and you want to get the word out to folks, to other veterans about what is available to them, what they can do with their money potentially. So I'm so glad that you're going to talk about that, because it's a big thing right now. What do I do? Do I get out of TSP? Do I leave it in there? What do I do with my money? So I'll let you kick it off, man. What do you want to start with, dude?
So yeah, I guess I'll just kind of start at the top. And so as folks hop on and see what do I do, and who am I, and why did I even start down this path? What gives me anything to stand on, right? Like, I think that helps frame things up. So I'm a retired Army dude. You can see my stuff behind me. Did 21 years. And then retired here in the Seattle area. I live 13 miles from downtown Seattle, but it's an hour and a half away no matter how you go, because I live on the other side of the water. But why did I get into the financial industry? Well, so Vic and I have connected, I don't know, probably a year and a half ago now, something like that, on LinkedIn. But one of our commonalities in background, probably why our LinkedIn's kind of cross paths, is I came out of the legal community. I was a paralegal in the Army for 21 years. And really got good at, especially the latter half of my career, research and data analysis and all the things. I got the wonderful opportunity to serve 4 years at the Pentagon, and really learned a lot there. And while it doesn't have anything directly to do with finance, it does have everything to do with detail-oriented work. And then the second part is I came up without much. I grew up in South Carolina, from humble means, and joined the Army, not intending to make it a career. I planned to do 4 years and then get out. And then magically, 21 years later, I was still there.
It's always how it works.
In 2010, I was deployed, and our chaplain ran Financial Peace University. So that's the Dave Ramsey program. And that's when that was the first time, outside of little snippets here and there, that I went through a full financial program and was able to get my personal financial life in order. I was single at the time, so not a whole lot there. Didn't have any big responsibilities other than myself, and poor spending habits as a junior enlisted soldier and young NCO. And so then came back and just continued to follow that program, right? No debt. That's a big one. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then investing, growing stuff, and getting very comfortable with it. And then getting to the point where I would help other people with it. And then in 2020, so I married my wife in 2011. In 2020, COVID happened. My wife was in corporate retail. She's a big numbers person. So MVMT Financial is me and my wife. We're a small operation, but we are backed by over 40 powerhouse financial companies. We're independent licensed agents that are partnered with all these powerhouse financial companies where we're able to do business through them. So we're an interface. But no, so she came out of the financial planning at the millions and millions and millions of dollars level for a massive retailer. Big Red Star would be your hint on which retailer it was she worked for. But she was a big planner for them at the district level. So planning millions of dollars of inventory across the entire Eastern Seaboard. And she decided to step into, at first, business financial planning for women-owned businesses. And then we kind of navigated, right, setting up an LLC for the first time and all these things we had to do. And through that, I became more and more interested in the work she was doing. And then as I knew I was retired, I was always, once I got halfway through, I was like, 20s it. And they did. I got selected for to go to the Sergeant Major's Academy right on my way out the door. But I said no to that. Because I knew I was done, right? And that's one thing Vic gets a lot, I get a lot is if you're thinking about retiring, how do you know? And nobody can tell you but you. You'll know when it's your time. But no, so fast forward and 2021, I get licensed. We start talking about building our business. We were with another brokerage at the time, learning, right? Like I spent a year and a half just learning. I wasn't doing a ton of individual work with people. What I was doing was listening late at night, studying for my license, doing all the practical examples, all the stuff that I could, and then started doing one-on-one meetings and building from there. And so now we're 5 years into it, goodness. And business is going well. We built something, and it's been built one conversation at a time. So if you ask me, Josh, what I do is I just talk to people and help them understand stuff. Because what I found is as I was preparing to retire, some of the big questions, I couldn't find somebody that I really meshed with, that I trusted or understood completely what they were trying to tell me. And so I realized there was an opportunity there, right? When you see a gap in the marketplace, which for me, it was getting good information, usable information to veterans in a way that they will receive it. Because veterans can be a finicky crowd. They don't want to be sold down the road on anything, right? Like they want to understand, they want to make good decisions, but they don't want you pulling no slicky boy stuff on them either. When I saw that there was an opportunity to step into that role from an educator standpoint and be able to, start a business, I figured we'd go all in. So that's a lot of it actually.
All great info, man.
Yeah, no, I think the background helps. I think people want to know, Josh, what gives you the right to sit here and talk about money?
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought up that whole, veterans don't like people who are trying to be sneaky with them. That's a very important thing. Who can you trust? Right. So that you don't want to go outside, like similar to going outside the gate, you see a car dealership at 25% interest or whatever the hell it is. Can you really trust those folks? No. So, I mean, Josh, I trust you and what you're doing, so that way I brought you on. Of course, you're a sponsor of the show as well, so I want to let folks know about that. But there's a reason why, because I only work with trusted sources, and that's why I connected with you. So yeah, let's kick it off however you want to talk about whatever topic, or if you want to go straight to the first question that you got in the comments, that's up to you. Can you see the comments on there?
I can't see comments on this side, and I don't have the YouTube running on the other side because I'd be looking at it.
So I'll bring it up here real quick, and we'll just answer this one real quick. This one is from Robert Chalk Lab. I assume he has a dog, and that's not his last name. It says, let's say a vet has about $700 monthly in excess funds, meaning after paying all bills and putting into saving a good chunk, and there's still about $700 left. Where you recommend to invest in?
Robert, I actually love this because Vic and I spoke a little bit before the show, and this brings me to my first thing. I would say sit down and have an individual meeting with somebody. So that reminds me to put my disclaimer out. This conversation today is going to be educational. It's going to be informational, but does not represent any specific financial advice, legal advice, tax advice, or anything like that. I have to say that as a licensed financial professional. I have to put it out there. But no, the good thing, what I would tell this person is, hey, you've got $700 a month in excess funds. And so you're in a good place, right? Like that's a little over $5,000 a year. You have options, but for me to make a recommendation or even talk to you about it, I would have to have and this is why I do everything conversational, a full picture of everything for someone. So my advice would be to sit down with a professional and figure out what your options are. And then not only what your options are, but what are your interests? It's always more fun if you're in stuff that you're interested in. And then what is your risk tolerance? Where are you at in life? What is your family situation? What does the future look like? Are you at the very top of your income earning potential right now? Or are you just on the way up? All those things are factors that we would look at before we ever discussed, hey, where would you recommend putting it? What I wouldn't recommend is, and this is advice I am willing to give, and this is to everyone, never get into something that you don't understand top to bottom and left to right. You should be working, and that's the person that you're working with. If you're working with a financial professional, or even if you're doing it on your own, make sure you know what you're in, you know why you're in it, and you know what the risk is. And there's different classes of that. It's, from no risk to high risk and volatility and those things. But for me to just say, hey, you got $700, you should put it here. I can't do that on this show. But if you ever wanted to sit down and talk and get a full picture of all your stuff, I'd be happy to, man.
Yeah, that's kind of a tricky question too. There's a ton of ways you can take that, right? But I'm glad you brought that up because everybody's situation is different. You can need that $700 for one thing or put it under a mattress. Who knows? No, I'm glad you brought that up. And he also, awesome answer. He says, love how you're not pushing anything and advising to find a pro. Much respect. Hell yeah, dude.
I appreciate that, brother. No, that's the name of the game, really. It's, again, this is what Vic and I were talking about is the financial industry is very broad spectrum. You've got everything from, what I do, which is on the kind of the shallow end of the pool. And we work with low risk and no risk and, plans to the ultra volatile in the crypto world and everything in between. And so my advice is always, get smart. That's it. And that's why I take so MVMT, that's our company. We take the educational approach on everything. And that's what we promised to do when we started this thing. And that's what we promised to deliver every day. So I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
No, and generally speaking, so veterans, and veterans is such a wide ranging thing too, right? Like you have folks who served a couple of years and then got out. They've had a second or third or fourth career. You've got people who do 20 or 30 years and retire. You got people who 12 years in and maybe something goes and they've got to medically retire. You got folks that have 10% VA, 0% VA, all the way up to 100% P&T. And so I think with veterans in specific, having someone that speaks the language and understands things is helpful. You don't have to spend a whole lot of time explaining stuff or getting into the weeds too much. You can, and so that's why I started in this path is I've talked to several financial professionals and I've been to the trade shows. I've been to the mastermind type events and that kind of stuff. I've met really, really great people. And I've met people who are just, the absolute pushiest of the pushy type salesmen and everything in between.
I think we've all met those people. They're all over online on certain platforms. And when they find out you're about to retire or leave the service, they'll sneak right into your inbox. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you throw that green open to work banner up on your LinkedIn and I'm on LinkedIn. And so I'm not hating on people it's a business platform. But there is a way to do it. And man, there's a lot of ways not to do it. And I see, and they don't come at me so much anymore. But I used to, right? They'd see I'm licensed and it's the same pitch every time. Hey, bring your book of business over to us. And, we'll get you on the best platform and this, that, and the other from a financial perspective. And I just always respond now, hey, I am happy running a successful business of my own. I prefer to be independent. I wish you all the best. And I do get messages all the time. So if somebody that tunes in on this show because you're interested in coming into this field, I will give you the God's honest, skinny truth that I've experienced. I will share my experience with you. If you're thinking about coming this way, things I did that I would never do again, things I've learned along the way, those lessons learned, and things that have worked. I try to be an open book, and I always try to remain true to my brothers and sisters in service, which is the same way I did it on active duty, which is just try to be a +1 for the team, right? Like just somebody that can be relied on. Nothing overly special that I do. I just try to be reliable, dependable, and help people make good decisions.
Excellent, man. Excellent. So let me see. I guess we could take it this way first, because this is something that I'm looking at right now.
Okay.
Let's talk TSP. Okay. There's the Roth, the traditional, right? There's a chunk of money that I have in both, right? Because as I think Roth is what the tax, you already pay the tax up front. Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah.
You've already paid your tax on it.
Yeah. So I have a chunk that's traditional. I have a chunk that's Roth, and namely because I did the research halfway in. I'm like, I can pay taxes up front, and rather that than, by chance taxes go way up here in, whatever 20 years when I go to look at taking it out. What can I roll the TSP into? What's probably the best thing that I can do after I leave the service?
So it depends. It depends on, again, the person. But let's say hypothetically, we're talking about a retired Sergeant First Class Cantrell or somebody. And this is hypothetical, but you get out, you've got a couple $100,000 in your TSP. You may be going back into the federal government. I will say up front, there's nothing wrong with staying in the TSP. A lot of people do it. What is tricky is if you don't go back into the federal government, you can no longer contribute to it. And I know, Vic, you're tracking some legislation on that. And I know you give regular updates on that legislation. The Forward Act, I think is what it's called. And so there's a chance that maybe down the road, retirees and maybe some disabled folks are able to contribute to it. But right now, you can't. Once you're retired, you can't contribute. And even if you come back into the federal government, you actually open a second TSP. It's not the same one that you had from your active duty time. And so I will say that first. There's nothing wrong with leaving it in the TSP, especially if you understand it. You know what you're in. You know why you're in it. So those same things I was talking about before. Do you understand what you're doing? Do you know why you're doing it? I really hope it's not just sitting in the G fund unless you got a reason for that. Especially right now, you are missing out on some big stuff right now. That's not investment advice. That's just looking at what the market's done over the past 12 months, especially the CS&I, right? Like in the life cycle funds, have all done, well. I'll plug my stuff here. Every month I do a TSP breakdown of what it's done for the past day, week, month, year. So if you want to hop on my LinkedIn, that's where I drop it at every month. It's the first week of the month. It's for the month prior, and it's got all the returns so that you can kind of keep an eye on it. But once you retire, if you want to move it, or there's different things you can do. First thing we're going to do is have a conversation about your risk tolerance and what it is that you want to see your TSP do. You can roll it into an IRA, and so those are individual retirement accounts, and so it's important. So in financial world, you'll hear all the time different categories of money. So first you'll have the bucket, so Roth or traditional, right? Like that's what we have in the TSP. But there's a third bucket too. I like to talk about this one because financial institutions, it breaks their brains. But if you deployed and contributed to your TSP, you also have a tax exempt bucket. And so you'll actually have 3 numbers inside your TSP. And that one breaks financial people's brains because tax exempt is not a status that exists anywhere else. They don't have a tax exempt IRA. It doesn't exist. They have Roth, they have TSP, or they have Roth and traditional, and then they have qualified and non-qualified. And so qualified just means that it's part of a retirement plan. So the TSP is a qualified retirement plan. So is a 401k, so is a 403b, so on and so on, with all those different kinds of retirement plans. And so if you're in a qualified plan, which is what the TSP is, it has to go to a like account, which means it has to go to a qualified plan. And then inside of that, it's either got to be Roth or traditional. But you can do an IRA. So that could be anything from, the big brokerage houses like a Vanguard or a Goldman Sachs or any of their general funds. And they all have different IRAs. That's not what I specialize in. So you'll hear me talk very generally about that. That's stuff that you can look into. A lot of advisors want to get involved in that, but honestly, if you're going into kind of a big index or something like that, you can do the research on your own and move it on your own without having to pay someone, exorbitant fees. I've worked with 2 clients recently, like in the last week, who, I don't pay attention to the fees that like individual advisors charge too much. I see them from time to time, and most of the time they're professionally structured, right? Like in a way that makes sense to me, and I can see kind of what they're charging for management and stuff. But this past week, I saw someone that was getting charged 8.6% a year on their stuff. So, and I'm sorry,
is that a lot compared to everybody else's?
That's insanely high. Less than 0.5 to 1 is normal. 1 is kind of on the high end. Anything over, and this is very specific. Advisors out there, I'm not hating on you, and this is not all encompassing. I'm just talking about what I saw. And then I saw another one where a unique situation, but they were wanting to charge this person a flat fee, but that flat fee happened to be about a quarter of what they were investing for the year. So ultimately a 25% fee to get them started in something that was relatively low end and not incredibly complicated. So I just say, when you're out there, especially if you're looking at something, if you ever want a second opinion on something, hit somebody up. You can hit me up. You can save my information. And even if it, like Josh, you and I will just never gel, and I can't see working with you. Hey, that's cool. I will tell you if I think you're getting robbed blind. Because I had to tell both these people, I was like, hey, like one was a lady, and she not confident in what she was doing. So I gave her the same talk, which is understand stuff first, and don't let someone talk really fast and like they're super. If they start using all the big financial words,
like the salesman pitch,
they get really salesy and they start trying to sound really smart and all that kind of stuff. And they had broken it out to where the fee was spread out monthly, so it didn't look that high. But when there's 12 months in a year, and if you're charging somebody $6,000 a month to manage their money, you're not helping their retirement; you're funding yours. It's kind of my take on that. So,
sounds like,
it was that particular one pissed me off. I'll just be honest. It looked to me like someone was taking advantage of somebody who didn't understand and was just nervous. But no, so that's on one side. So you could go into the IRA, that kind of thing, or depending on where you're at, I live in the annuity space. Annuities aren't for everybody, but on the annuity side, you have the ability to take your money and put it into a contracted agreement where they do different things, but there's growth annuities, fixed index annuities is kind of where I live. And you can grow it without having any risk of loss. So if you have something that you built for retirement and you're in a phase of your life where risk isn't your favorite thing for your nest egg, then you can move all of it or a portion of it into an annuity where it's still going to get the opportunity to grow, but it won't go down anymore. And then there's some other bells and whistles. You can get a bonus, or you can, get a participation rate in the S&P 500 or something like that. It's a very again, it's very complex, offered by many, many companies, and individualized, but it's an opportunity for people to grow without risk. And so when I'm saying you're coming out of the Army or you're coming out of the military, retiring, you start a new job, you got a 401k, or you're back in the federal government, you got another TSP going, taking a part of your military TSP and protecting it and growing it may not be a bad option. Again, we would look at the total spectrum of what you got going on, which are in goals. Not everybody wants to work till 75. Not everybody wants to work till 55. And so there's ways to plan and take advantage of kind of the best of both worlds. And so that's another option you have, is to roll it into an annuity or roll a portion of it into an annuity. You could always cash it out. If you're not 59 and a half, That's hard because you're going to pay taxes, and you're going to get hit with a 10% penalty on top of that. But I've met with plenty of people who, they wanted that RV, and they did their 25, 30 years, and they said, you know what, I'm cashing some out and I'm getting that thing. And then we talked 6 months later, and the RV lost its luster, and they're trying to sell it for 3/4 of what they paid for it. And, but it's your money. You do with it what you want. That's what I say. But, I would always say, sit down with somebody and just talk, walk through what you're trying to do. And with your total life. Hey, I've got X, Y, and Z. I've got these kids. I got my spouse. I've got grandkids. I'm single and I just want to live it up. Whatever you've got going on, and then lay out what your goals are and how you plan on getting there. I've met with every kind of person on the spectrum, from having nothing but a bunch of debt to people who hop on and we start going through their stuff, and they're talking to me like they're worried about their money, and I have to stop them and say, hey, congratulations, you got $2.5 million net worth. You're in you've been worried about it for so long and pushing for so hard that you've somehow you've crushed it, and everything in between.
So I do have a question for you, Josh, because
Yes.
This is a question I came across as I was just lurking through Facebook group pages and stuff like that. There was talk of being able to take out funds from your TSP, penalty free if you're 100% VA disabled. Do you know anything about that?
So there's some specific rules about how you can access it without penalty. And there's hardship rules that are involved in there. So my thought there is that I would have to go do the research, but if it was tied to a medical hardship or a financial hardship, then you might be able to. But I don't know that 100% P. I don't think that 100% P&T alone gets you there. But there are some hardship rules, right? Like when if you go in and you access your money early, when you go to file your taxes is when the penalty comes due. So you know that. And when you do that, you'll get, depending on how you do your taxes, but if you go through someone or you use a software, they're going to ask you a series of questions that could eliminate the penalty. Medical hardship, financial hardship. If you can show that, like, hey, we wouldn't have made it this year without this, then you can get that hardship exception. Again, not a tax expert. I know more than the average bear about taxes, but I always consult a tax professional for tax advice. I am not that guy. And the penalty portion does fall under taxation.
Good. Yeah, I'm going to check that out too, because there was a lot of folks answering questions on there, and of course, just like anything else that's on Facebook, or LinkedIn or whatever, you want to check out the source for these things. You don't want to just take somebody's word for it and then make a potentially irreversible decision, and then you kind of mess up you and your family. Now let's talk BRS, blended retirement system. Okay, so I think that it's a new type of retirement system, newer, right? I think they introduced it in 2018, something like that. And you contribute towards your TSP, and I think that they do matching.
They
right?
do.
Okay, so what are your thoughts on the BRS, I guess, compared to like the traditional retirement system, and could it potentially be better than the original retirement system, the high three?
My candid thoughts are no. They went to it because it's cheaper for the government. It's the high three especially, it depends on the age, right? Like there's ways that it can do, because I'm sure there's somebody there. If somebody's contributing 20% of their paycheck to their TSP while they're getting the match, they're making good moves in the TSP, they do that. They're going to have a big number coming out because of the time value of money and the way that compound interest works. When I look at it, and what I've seen, especially with young enlisted soldiers, and I will just go there. I didn't retire that long ago. It was 3 years ago. So I had plenty of junior soldiers and or service members. I'll use service members because this is not just Army folks, but who were in the BRS. And so I had to learn it to be able to talk to them about it. And it's designed. It's not horrible. It's a good program as long as you're contributing to the TSP. What I was seeing was your E1 to E4, you don't have a whole lot, so they're contributing up to the match, but the amount of dollars, right, on that salary is not very high. And when you look at how compound interest works, the bigger the number you can get to, the earlier, the better. Because that's when you will get the time value of money and you'll really start to see things, build and build. But it takes time and it takes patience and it takes really making hard decisions. If you've ever been around junior service members, I don't care which branch it is, money's tight. You're dealing with people in their late teenage, early 20s, a lot of times, who have varying levels of maturity, especially financial decision-making maturity. They're in the military. I'm not questioning, but we all, if you're on here, you know what I'm talking about. And I think while it can be an amazing thing. And they said, oh, well, now at least everybody gets to take a little something with them when they leave, and they can roll it. They can put it into a 401k when they move on. It did. I don't know. The high 3 was such a retention tool. Right. Like, especially if you got to the 8-year point, like you did a second enlistment, or you're an officer, you're beyond 6, you made it, and you make that turn towards a career mentality. You're going to 20 unless something happens most of the time. And you know the value of that. And then you're right. Like, I'm 41 years old and retired from the military and working a second job. And there's something beautiful about that. And there's something awesome about it, right? Like, as a military retiree, I realize I'm very blessed to have that. And then with the VA, additionally, it allows you some breathing room. It's not a way to get rich. I've retired as a master sergeant in the Army. It's not a whole ton of money, but believe me, it is over time. And it adjusts upwards every year. And so the blended retirement system, it's what's out there now. And so I can't hate on it. It's all of my clients in the next few years are going to start shifting that direction. And so it's not terrible, but I do think it was more cost effective for the government is why it got put into place. It put a lot more responsibility back on the service member to save while they're in. And there was some, the match is a good thing there. And there's still, the high 3 retirement piece of it, but it's a much smaller number later on. And then there's this lump sum thing that I've seen come up a couple of times. I lurk in a lot of the groups too. So there's a way that you can get out and just take a lump sum. And I'll just say every situation is different. But if you take the lump sum, I guarantee you every time it's more favorable to the government than it is for you. The longer you can keep that money working and making interest for you, the better you're doing.
Yeah. So I asked that, when they put that into place, I had one of my Marines come to me and ask me about it, because they gave people the option, right? There was a certain amount of time where you can opt into the BRS. And the question came up, I usually do my meetings in the morning, maybe once a week to have everybody in the room. And then they're like, hey, the BRS, sir, what's your idea on that? We have to make a decision here by close of business, whatever. And I'm not going to give them any direction on that. I'm like, hey, talk to a financial advisor. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because I'm so close to it. I'm going to stay in the high 3, right? This was like, I don't know, 2018 maybe. I'm going to stay in the high 3. So yeah, you said it the right way. To each their own. I mean, you really got to talk to a financial advisor, strategist, or somebody professionally in that realm. I'm not going to give this young Marine financial advice. I would tell him what I'm going to do, and that's about it. But don't follow my lead, because my situation after investing into the TSP for so long, and right there on the cusp of a TSP or a high 3 retirement, I'm not going to. I don't expect him to go the same route I'm going.
No, and TSP wasn't mandatory for you. And that's something you did. Smart guy. That's probably why you were a warrant officer. A smart guy and made good moves along the way. I had, I was way less reserved. I had one of my young soldiers that I had as a young soldier. And then he went off and did his thing for a while. And he ended up back in the same office about 7, 8 years later. And he had decided to move over. And I told him, I was like, dude, you're out of your flipping mind.
And we moved over from the high three.
He was eligible for both. He had to pick. And he picked blended. And he didn't know, and he didn't give good advice. He went to the briefing and he saw, like, if you've ever been to any financial place, any financial briefing, right? And that's why I don't have this slide on any of my presentations, because you see it everywhere else. But they show you the big swinging arc of what compound interest does for you and all this stuff. And they tell you how you're going to be a millionaire and all this. It's doable, right? Like, that's how it works. That's how compound interest works. But if you're later starting on that, or you're starting, he was 6 or 7 years in when he made the decision. Yeah, he's at like 14, 15 years now. Still keep up with him. But it was just one of those things. And then, I worked in the legal field, so I was around a lot of attorneys. And I will tell you, it's going to be a retention problem. It's going to be a retention problem for attorneys. It's going to be a retention problem for highly skilled folks, because it's just not the same level of staying in to get to that 20 mark. It's just not. You worked around longer. And I think on the professional side, especially, but with officers, people who can get out and get jobs where they can contribute to a 401k and have a little more freedom of maneuver in their personal lives and that kind of stuff. It's just going to be hard for the blended retirement system to be that magnet that draws you back in versus the 20-year retirement. And then, you're about to make 05, but if you make 06, it's worth a lot more, and all that stuff.
That's how they get you. It
is. And
you just stay in.
That's why, and how many folks do you know that they just kept on keeping on? But it's for a good reason. I was sitting down with the Sergeant Major the other day and saw, we were going through all his numbers, and 25 year Sergeant Major is a little different retirement than a 21-year Master Sergeant. So
it is.
It is.
It is. But I mean, like you mentioned it at the beginning, when when they were dangling Chief Warrant Officer 4 in front of me, and I'm like, do I stick around? The goal was always 20 years. So like, nah, I don't really want to move. I'm tired of moving so much, tired of uprooting the family, and retirement was looking all right. I knew a few folks who had already retired. I mean, we know a lot of the same people, and I'm like, man, it's not looking that bad. I'm looking at their Facebook photos. I'm like, this guy is traveling around all over the place, and he's retired and doesn't have to show up for muster or whatever, accountability in the morning. Sounds like the place for me, man.
Yep. And that's what I will continue to give that advice. Am I there? If you're retiring, especially as a high 3 retiree and you're a GWAT and you're going to have any VA, like, you're going to have a decent landing. And that's before you ever start talking about whatever job you're going to do or anything like that. It's just, how long do you want to do it for? And how long does your body hold up, and how much more do you want to move around and do all those things? And I know people on 20 years, and I know people that are hanging on till they won't leave until they tell them they have to.
So Josh, I'm going to ask you something here, and you don't have to answer it right now. You can take some time to think about it.
Okay.
We can revisit this on the back end if you want. But let's say you got 5 years left until you retire.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Your 15-year mark, let's say, 20 years on the horizon. What are your top 3 financial moves that Josh, not anybody else, Josh is making?
I'll tell you the first.
You don't have to answer them right now, but
number 1 right now, and then we'll go 2, 3 later. Yeah. Number 1, I am, and I know Vic, you and I are on the exact same page here. Mm-hmm. I'm eliminating debt as fast as possible.
Yes.
I am, whatever debt I have, I am eliminating that, because all money math comes down to 2 things: what's your income, what's your outgo. And the better the higher your income, the better. The lower your outgo, the better. And that's welcome to Finance with Josh. It's a very simple equation on the back end is how do we build the income number up and how do we drop that outgo number down? So 5 years out from retirement, I'm leaning into debt snowball, whatever method you want to use, but I am eliminating debt. I'm getting rid of credit card debt. I'm a Dave Ramsey guy, but I break from Dave on one thing: mortgages. I'm all right with mortgages, but car payments, credit card payments, you can finance anything these days. And so anything like that, I'm getting rid of it because you just don't want that hanging over your head as you're you don't want the feeling of debt influencing the decisions for retirement. So that's number one. And then I'll think about 2 and 3 and we'll circle back to those.
Yeah. And we are on the same page with that. That was the top thing I did. And I know I've talked to you about it before. And, it gets me too, because I know a lot of folks that retire and then they immediately, as soon as they retire, right, they still have their house, right? Maybe they're living in their forever home or whatever, immediately get back into debt. Let me buy this $40,000 truck. I just retired. It's a little gift to myself, right? And I'm like, why would you do that? Continue driving what you're driving. I'm nobody to tell them that, but it's just odd. Like, you just got out of debt, my man. What are we doing getting back into it?
Yeah, that's, again, I don't tell anybody what to do.
It's a lifestyle choice, yeah.
If I'm giving somebody advice on just how to prep for retirement and so that their financial life feels good as they come out and they feel like they're on top of the world instead of sweating to death about what job they've got to get, then I would say eliminate debt as soon as, and that's not, don't wait till 5 years. If you're listening to this and you've been in for 5 years, then you got 15 to go, or 30, or you still got 25 to go. The quicker you get rid of debt and start living a debt-free lifestyle, you will understand why. I got a 2017 Toyota Tacoma that's been paid off for 6 years. I love fast cars. I love cool cars and cool trucks and all that stuff, but I like paid off car better. And I just told myself I'll drive that thing until it doesn't do what I need it to do anymore, or the wheels fall off. And neither of those two things has happened yet. So,
yeah, I love that, man. For the longest time, there's the concept keeping up with the Joneses type of deal. So I moved in an area where folks may have a little bit more land, right? So like larger driveways, things like that. A lot of my neighbors have RVs, their boats and stuff in their driveways. And for the longest time, we took a trip out to a national park. We've driven up to like Big Bear or stuff like that. And I was like, man, I'd love to have an RV. And I know you mentioned it too earlier, like the RVs, they just kind of sit around after you drive them once or twice. Half of my neighbors, all their trash is just sitting in their driveway. And I thought, you know what, I would rather not owe somebody or some company for the RV for whatever it costs, right? I like one of those Overlander ones that look like the Sprinter vans, kind of small, right? But you can fit a lot of stuff in there. And, those things are like $100,000 if you want like the 4-wheel drive ones with the nice rugged wheels, all nice interior. And I thought, I would just rather rent one for like a week for like $1,000 and then give it back, let somebody else do the maintenance on this thing, do the vehicle registration on it, and just rent it, have to give it back. And then if I want to do it again, just look at the rental website again and just rent it out. Instead of taking all that ownership of it, of the debt, of the upkeep, maintenance, of registration, all that trash, man. That's just me personally, man.
I'm the same way. But so each their own, and that's the same thing. Is if we get together and you're like, Josh, I've got a $70,000 truck, I'm not going to be mad at you, and I'm not going to judge you for it. I like nice trucks too. I like cool cars. I would have a $400,000 car if I could afford it. Just
$1 million car.
That's the Lamborghini Huracan. That's always like, I was a Lamborghini Diablo guy as a kid, right? Like when I was growing up in the 90s, like that Lamborghini Diablo was just like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So I've liked them, and they've just gotten more and more expensive but cooler looking. They get sleeker every year, and I've never driven a V12, but I imagine it's a lot of fun. So.
See, I like the fast cars as well, but then when my kid asks me, "Hey, Dad, what's your dream car?" I'm like, "I'm driving it, dude. It's my SUV right now. I'm driving. It's been paid off for like 5-6 years. I'm good, man. I don't have to answer to anybody.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So let me see what we got here. Let me go to the comments here really quick. And GC Jarhead, welcome. Good afternoon. Can't stay. Just wanted to pop in and say Semper Ra. Let's see what else we got here. U.S. Army Grunt. Hey, welcome, dude. You guys are lucky, but in my day, TSP wasn't even a thing. So much is different today than in the 80s and 90s. I'm curious, like what, I think U.S. Army Grunt, he mentioned that he was in the 60s. I'm curious, like what is available to them if there was no TSP? I mean, what was there, like nothing, no contribution program?
And depending on when he served, it was high 3 or even before the high 3. It was the previous version of the high 3, and how they calculated that. Yeah, it wasn't around. TSP has been around since what year was it? Started for federal employees. I think it was in the 50s, but I have to go back and fact check. I don't know if that was off the top of my head. But in the 50s is, I believe, when it started for federal employees. But yeah, it didn't come over to the military. When I came in, nobody talked to me about a TSP. I didn't even know what it was. I was a private, and all I got talked to about was don't do dumb stuff on the weekend.
Yeah, I think that was something that I wish my leadership would have talked to me more about, because nobody ever told me, hey, get out of the G fund. I'm over here 10 years in and still in the G fund. And then I just happened to sit in a financial management class. And I'm like, let me check out this TSP thing. It was always like on the back burner. I was always like on the mission and stuff like that. Never even thought of it. I was always trying to save money. And then somebody brought it up to me like, oh, dude, the TSP is doing great right about now. I'm like, let me check, man. I'm like in the G fund.
Yeah, there's savings.
I'm looking. Oh, dude. And I go through the, you can see all the historical data on the TSP, right? On the I fund, C fund, S fund. And I'm like, man, it's like historically, it's like 10%, 8%, stuff like that. And I'm like, what am I bringing in? Like 0.25 or some crap, with the G funds. I'm like, there's no freaking way. So I immediately, like that week, went into the financial management office. And I think every base has one of these, right? You go, mine happened to be at the, inside the library, the base library. You go in there, make the appointment with the financial manager. And I'm like, hey, I need to get smart on this. She's like, okay, let me see your TSP stuff. She's like, why are you still in the G fund? I'm like, well, great question. That's what I came here to talk to you about. What do I do with my hands? What do I do with my TSP? And she's like, all right, let's look at this. What's your risk level, your tolerance level, this and that. And when, I was younger back then. So my risk level was like, hey, let's put it all in there.
Throw the dice, baby. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. So that was probably some of the best advice, man. Because after that, it's like, hey, let's max this thing out. Let's see what it does. And that meant that I had to take some time off from hanging out all the time, going out all the time, maybe not eating out as much and things like that. But now I'm glad I did it. Right. And, now that I look back on it, I was like, shit, now I can go out and have as many dinners as I want, for however long, because I made these decisions and I made those contributions that I did.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Being deliberate about what you're doing and willing to say no to, you hear Dave Ramsey's very, he's very harsh on it, but I say have fun, live your life, but at the same time, like be diligent in your savings and understand that if the only way you're going to get there is to be kind of diligent and save more than 5% when you can. I had an officer that I worked with. He'd branched over from the enlisted side, and from the time he was in E7 to when he went over and he ended up retiring as a major, so in 04. But he lived out his E7 paycheck, and they just invested everything beyond that, like from that point on. And so when he was leaving as a major, he's going to be a high 3 major. He's a Green Beret, so he's going to be making some pretty good money on the VA side, because he'd been, doing some crazy stuff his second half of his career. And then on top of that, he had saved a couple $100,000 in his TSP.
Excellent.
He'd done really well.
Excellent. Yeah, that's the way to do it, man, is if you are double. I mean, again, this is not financial advice or anything, but it's just something I personally did. Dual income is almost like a blessing as long as you are in good standing, right? In your happy marriage and all that. And then for like the last 5 years of my career, man, we just lived off of my wife's pay. I was a chief warrant officer 3 and just invested and saved everything, maxed out TSP and all that stuff. We just lived off of one income, as much as we could, right? Sometimes I'd have to dip in there for whatever reason if we wanted to do some work on the yard or something like that, pay something off. But that if you can manage that, dude, that was a freaking blessing, dude.
Yeah, that's a big one. I live up here, and you're in Southern California. I'm up in the Pacific Northwest, and close enough to Seattle that I see. I don't know how in some of these places it can't be dual income. It's tough. So if you're in the position where you can have dual income and as we say, have a cherry on top or some extra gravy to put away, then do it. It's definitely. I don't think that's crossing the line of any financial advice saying, hey, save as much as you can.
No, I don't think it is. Let's see here. Who's this? Jason Bender. I thought this was the other guy. All right. I have a sister graduating 20 invested. Okay. Excellent. Well, worth 5,000. Excellent. So things grow.
Things grow.
Hey, what is your thought on crypto? I got to ask you because I don't know many people who like it. I myself have not invested in any of that stuff. Just wanted to get your take on it.
Highly volatile. It's interesting to sit back and look at. It's incredibly highly volatile. There's a lot of, as it becomes more mainstream, some things kind of come into focus. There's some that have been around a little bit longer that people are more familiar with, like a Bitcoin or Ethereum or an XRP or some of those that people are Solana. It goes on. I've got some friends who are really into it. If you have it as part of your portfolio, I'm not mad at you for that. I think it's not bad. It's hard to say, right? Like it's all kind of funny money to me. It's one of those things where it's starting to be regulated, and believe me, if you move a bunch or you sell a bunch, the tax man's starting to come look for you now. So that's the thing. I think if you have some, as long as it's a small percentage of your portfolio, then you're probably good. If you've got a ton of crypto and nothing else, like God be with you. And if you're in some of the crazy meme coins and all that kind of stuff, I've seen too much of the rug pull stuff that makes me feel really uneasy about the whole thing. And I was reading, I try to stay up to breast on the entire financial industry as best I can. That's impossible to do. It's so massive. But I pay attention to crypto news probably once every 2 weeks. I'll kind of watch a crypto update or something while I'm working out, just so that I can understand and be in tune with the broader financial market. Crypto rug pulls are they're wild to me that they can exist and that they just happen, and people are just, this happens. They'll build up a coin to a valuation of several $100 million, and then it just disappears overnight, and it's just like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah. That's a scary thing because it's not tangible, right? It's all via some kind of a code or something.
Right. And it's all, there's all these scams around it, and there's the wallets that it's held in, and wallets that are online and wallets that are offline. And I'm not a crypto expert by any means. I have a little bit, mostly just playing with it, that I bought a while back. I remember the first time somebody talking to me about Bitcoin, like, I don't know, it was like, back then it was like $3,000 for a Bitcoin or something. And I remember kind of being like, that's cool, but that's kind of, I don't know what that is. And I'm not going to put a bunch of money into something I don't understand. Wish I would have grabbed a bunch. But at the same time, like, I know people that bought crypto or bought Bitcoin when it was 110,000 not too long ago. And now I think today it's running around somewhere between 60 and 70 today. It's just one of those things. Again, at the beginning, I said, I don't recommend to anyone being in anything that you don't understand top to bottom, left to right, and kind of backwards to forwards. So you don't have a firm understanding of how it all works. What happens if things don't go well? That's another one that, everybody wants to, especially with the sales folks out there. And I am a sales guy. I have to be, right? In the financial industry, I have a part of my job that is to provide to my family. And the only way I can do that is sell financial products. But if a sales guy doesn't talk to you about no matter what it is, what the downside looks like, what the ugly looks like, I will tell you, financial products, no matter how they're designed, when the markets are singing, they're generally looking really great. And when the markets aren't singing, that's when you want to know, all right, what happens then? And with the crypto, there's no bottom, right? I think it can all disappear overnight, and there's really no recourse. If somebody in a foreign country hacks your stuff and just takes all your coins, what
do you do then?
That's not a lot.
I came across I got a friend from back in the day, and got him on Facebook and all that, and saw one day that he bought himself this Audi R8, I think it was, and also a Lamborghini. And I'm like, well, dude, what the hell? Like, what are you doing now? And he's like, bro, I got in early on Bitcoin and I sold a ton of it. And he got himself a big house. He's got himself all these cars. I'm like, whoa, man, yeah, that's great. But you took a real risk there, dude, not knowing. I mean, he dumped a lot of money in that. It worked out well for him, but it doesn't work out well for everybody like that.
No, I was reading a story recently on the Winklevoss twins. They kind of did the same thing. They bought 100,000 Bitcoin. I think it was at 10,000 when they bought it or something. And they've grown an entire $1 billion business out of it. The guys that got shafted on the Facebook deal, those guys. Mm-hmm. So out of their settlement, they spent $10 million on Bitcoin, and then cashed it all in and started their own crypto $1 billion empire. So it does work out. And I know there was a lot of those folks. They all started podcasts. It's funny. John Lee Dumas is one of them. If you ever watch, I think it's Entrepreneurs on Fire is his show, but EOF. But like they all hightailed it for Puerto Rico with no capital gains tax. So they all live in Puerto Rico for exactly half the year plus 1 day now. And then they come back to the States for the other half a day.
That might not be a bad idea, man.
No, it's a play. They've cracked down on that stuff some, but a lot of those guys with crypto, they left there so they could sell it without having to pay, crazy amounts in taxes. But I mean, if you turned a $50,000 investment into $50 million, like, congratulations, you won that game. And it has, but I don't know. And I'm not here saying don't go into crypto. I'm just saying that's not my thing. Go talk to a crypto expert. That would be my advice.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, what do those look like anyway? Like just financial.
I've looked into trying to get certified just so that you can talk about it. And even the certification pathways right now are really, there's a couple of like certified crypto analyst or whatever it is, but and then I see those guys on LinkedIn and I'm like, I don't want to be part of that game.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, they message you, hey, click this link. No thanks.
Do you know anything about student loan forgiveness when for retirees or maybe somebody who's been in federal service or veterans?
So on the VA side, I know there's some available. I don't know all the rules around it. I'm not necessarily a VA benefits expert other than on the financial impact of things. And the student loan forgiveness side, I know there are ways to it. I know that the student loan forgiveness program was a big thing for people enlisting especially when I came in. I had a lot of friends that were E4s with decrees, and they came in solely for that purpose. And then finally, we got some legislation to get that moving because a lot of them got kind of stuffed when they went to file for their, you do 10 years of federal service, basically, they would forgive your student loans. And a lot of them applied and they're like, oh, yeah, but yours doesn't qualify for this reason, or this reason. And I had a lawyer friend of mine who, it was ugly. But they finally came back around. But we lost a good lawyer out of the Army because of it. So it happens. But that's, it's just part of the game. But on the
Yeah, I gotta.
VA side, I would have to look into the individual again. Everything, and especially as I know you've learned with the chapter VRNE,
Mhm.
um, everything is so specific to individual situation, and then a lot of times, who is the VA benefits person that you're working with? Those two are
Yes.
variables. I think the second one, I think the who shouldn't matter as much. I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day. I was
Mhm.
working out, I caught it afterwards, but you guys were talking about it, and I think that was what my prevailing thought after listening to you guys talk about that was, why are we so dependent on the who? Like it seems like the system should kind of be able to stand on its own, and the who should just kind of guide it through the process.
Do you mean
Um,
like the who as far as the person applying to
at the
the
school,
VRNE?
at the school, like
Oh, the school.
the
Okay.
person, or whether or not you get the VA, like whether it's accepted or whether what you're applying for merits it or not. It sounds like
Right.
it sounds like it's not as structured. At least that was my takeaway.
No,
Um,
and you're right about that. Oh God, the amount of folks I talk to about this that ask me questions about it simply because the video I put out there about getting approved and heading towards your bachelor's and master's degree, it is not as structured as you would think. It is very, very counselor dependent. Depends on who you get, right? If they're having a bad day, dude, you're not going to have a very easy ride toward getting that approved. Um, I would say if you get denied, hey, you have the appeal process, potentially be able to get another counselor, or at least request another counselor, right? The issue is that they give you just a generalized email. So if you want to request another counselor, you have to send it to the email that you were emailing your own counselor on. It's like eva@va.org or something. And I don't know how it gets funneled through their system to know whose email goes to whose counselor or what. But yeah, it's a very kind of messy thing. It's not really structured from what I see. Um, for instance, take my scenario. I was supposed to start school in August. I am now going to start March 1st. And even now, when I'm getting the emails, it has the wrong information on it. I just got an email today. They got the wrong they got the wrong degree plan on there, the wrong date on there. And I'm like who's paying attention to this? Like who's filling this stuff out? And I understand that there's a lot that goes on with all that, right? There's maybe one counselor that has 150 cases, and I think I've talked about it before. But I mean, there's a level of non-standardization that goes in there.
yeah, I guess that's the missing thing is the standardization, and so that would be my. I don't want to misspeak on anything, but I would need to look at the individual details on the student loan forgiveness and stuff as far as that goes. It's not something I touch often,
Mhm.
and have just kind of personal experience with through people I know.
Yeah. What about say you got a veteran who is maybe in debt collections,
Mhm.
right? Owes a bunch of money. What would you do in that situation? What would you tell them to do? Like, what's the smartest move? What the first step towards eliminating that or getting out of that situation?
Call. So again, this isn't specific advice.
Mhm.
But I would call the people that are trying. So if you're in collections, I would call the collections company and um, see what you can work out. I learned this from Dave Ramsey, years of listening to the Dave Ramsey show. Um, Call and see if you can work it out. A lot of times they will settle on a number. You don't have to go through a consolidation company that's going to charge you to do stuff. Call and make an offer. Now you got to be prepared. Like if you call, let's say a medical bill that's $1,200 or something, and you call and say, hey, like 1,200, I just can't get there, but I can pay you 650 right now. If you make that offer and they say yes, you have to be prepared to pay it. But I know I had this conversation not long ago with someone, and it worked on two of their bills, and they had about 5 bills they were working on, and they were able to get 2 of them negotiated down and paid off immediately. So now they can start working on getting that off their credit record over time. Because this was a fairly young person who was now is trying to get their life together and potentially buy a house in the future. And credit score is one of those things that goes into that. And so we talked about it, and I just said, hey, see if this works. And they called me back 2 weeks later and said, hey, it did. I worked on 2 of them, and I paid them off. And so those 2 are gone, and now they have less bills and the ability to put more towards getting the other 3 taken care of. And then there's always, if you want to look into debt consolidation, you can, but that can be tricky, right? Like a lot of times it's just moving money around and who you owe it to and what the interest rate is. And I mean, that's a whole complex math problem in and of itself, and whether or not it makes sense.
I imagine. And you have to have heard some crazy scenarios in your time as a financial strategist, a financial professional.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, Josh, what are the craziest things you've seen as far as of course, no names, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, and I gotta be careful not. So I will change facts a little bit. Just everybody watches it, like, oh, he's talking about me.
That's me, dude.
No. Oh gosh. I mean, I've got my favorite stories. I'm trying to think. Most of the time they're not too crazy. I have people that tell me they're just broke and have no hope all the time. And then we sit down and do their numbers and I'm mind blown sometimes. And I'm just like, you're not broke. I think one of the things I see a good bit is people keeping up with the Joneses gets people in trouble. Combined, let's say, for instance, people have a combined income in their household of $150,000. When I grew up, $150,000 is a lot of money. And for them it was too, but then they're both driving $80,000 and $90,000 vehicles. Yeah. Those are things that I see, and that it honestly, at this point in where I'm at, it just hurts my heart for them a little bit, because it's right. Like, and you can go to whatever. And again, I'm not hating on you if you're a car person, but you are. I can do the math on that, and your quality of life is being sacrificed to some degree to have a shiny object. And that's I've seen that. I've seen that a lot, right? Like, car debt is one of those things. It's right. You can't go get a car right now for, I was getting my oil changed, and I went to the dealership to get it changed. And it's the first time in forever I've been out walking around a dealership, and I was just looking at the sticker prices on cars, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? I remember what I bought my truck for, and I was like, this is wild. But no, and then the average car payment in America now is north of $850 a month. Oh. Yeah, that was more than my rent, and
oh, hell yeah.
And so that was, as a young guy. So I know that things have also just changed, right? Like the inflation has happened and things have changed, but to the degree that you can not make decisions like that, not have more. And so why was that one crazy? Well, that's more in combined car value than your annual income. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks right now, house, so many people, the real estate market changed quickly from 2020 to 2026. It kind of did this really fast, up really fast, and then back down. And so you're seeing a really interesting phenomenon there with where people are in homes at a really great interest rate, but they've either outgrown the home, or they bought too much home, or they're just not happy where they're at. But we're in this, and it's a nationwide problem outside of a couple of areas. Real estate's very area specific, but I've seen a lot of people who want to make moves, but they just can't. They can't. It doesn't make sense. They either take a loss selling the house that they just can't take, or they can't sell. And so that's another interesting one. I don't know. I've seen a lot of retirees. That's the beautiful thing about working with military retirees. A lot of times is you retire, get VA coming in of some sort, get another job. All of a sudden, you're making the most money you've ever made in your life. That's a good place to be. And so those are the crazy good stories. I've sat down with, a bunch of all shucks folks who are multimillionaires. And I've sat down with people that, they wear a 3-piece suit everywhere they go and they don't got 2 nickels to rub together. It just depends on how you've done things and stuff. I focus primarily in the veteran world. So my folks generally fall within a certain range. And then from being a legal guy from 21 years, I could tell you all kinds of just crazy stories, but that would be forever. I will say this, especially if there's young folks out there, who you partner with in life matters. So I will say I've seen a lot of that going wrong. That's just from experience and not really financial advice. That's more just life advice. But if there's any young folks watching, who you partner with matters.
I'm sure you've seen this in the on the legal side too, right? So I've had folks who have approached me, both when I was in uniform, right? Because having headed up the legal center there, and even afterwards, right, and through Facebook and stuff, giving me their scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, getting divorced, I gotta give up this much to my wife, husband, whatever the case may be. And I'm thinking like, wow, I mean, there was a time where I served with this old gunny, this old crusty guy, E7 guy. And he brought me over, and this is when I was looking at marrying my wife. And he's like, let me tell you something, Vic, sit down, crusty dude, right? He had a cane and everything in uniform, right? And like all messed up, right? Broken back. I don't know what the hell's wrong with him. He's like, hey man, let me tell you something, man. It's cheaper to keep her. I'm like, all right, good to go, Gunny. So
sage
I
wisdom.
mean, yeah, it's sage wisdom, right? Sage wisdom. But thankfully I've had a happy marriage for almost 20 years and things just work out. So I wanted to mention too, man, we were just talking about crazy scenarios. So the other day I was getting an Amazon package. You got the Amazon truck that drives by. Amazon package driver steps out of the car or out of his truck, and he's like, hey, is that your car there? And he points to the little white car parked right there, right in front of my house. And I'm like, oh, that's my daughter's car. Right? He's like, yeah, you want to sell it? I'm like, no. Like, why do I want to? No. Like, this is strange, He's like, yeah, I'm looking for another car, maybe like a 4-cylinder. Things are expensive these days. I'm like, not for sale, bro. I appreciate it though. Thank you. And I immediately went inside and locked the door, locked the car door just in case. No, man, but yeah, prices are high, man. They really are. And it's truly a blessing to be able to have paid all that stuff off, like be debt free, and not be in a payment plan.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched, there's these, I've seen it on maybe YouTube Shorts. I'm sure they have it on TikTok and Instagram too. These folks at the dealership, right? And I guess it's titled, let's see what these people, how much is a payment for a Honda dealership person or whatever. So they go to different departments. Mm-hmm. They go to the salesperson, they go to the mechanic. They're like, hey, what do you drive? And what is your payment? And I'm like blown away. They're like, oh, I drive a Honda Accord. My payment is $650. I drive a BMW. The lady at the front desk, I don't know her financial situation, right? But she's like, oh, I drive a BMW X5 or whatever. Payment is $750. I'm like, what what world is this, bro? $750?
It's wild. Yeah, and again, you're at the car dealership asking car dealership folks. They're around new cars all day long, right? Like,
right?
It's part of the game, and I get it. But it's wild, and inflation is going to happen, right? Like that's just the way that capital
absolutely
works. Yeah. Wages haven't jumped up like that. Some have, but not by and large. I'm from South Carolina. Wages in South Carolina have not jumped up. That's why part of the reason I didn't settle back there is that while it is cheaper to live there, I live in a high cost of living area, and I go back and there's not a huge difference in what I spend going out to dinner here versus going out to dinner there.
Right.
There's not a huge difference in the cost of a car. Pretty big difference in the cost of the house, but not as big as it used to be, because South Carolina was one of those low income places that people moved to in droves. Low cost of living places, not low income. But yeah, it's wild, and that's what I see more and more is, and why I'm in this to help people come up with a strategy that's for the long term, is you have to build something that you can lean on later, because like I said, with military retirees, you get to work, but you may work another 10 or 20 years after that. And if you start making the most money you've ever made in your life, you're likely going to be spending the most money you've ever spent in your life. It's just the way that we do things as people. But then when you retire, did you account for that? And then is that in there? And that's a big part of what I do too, is help people make sure that they're where they want to be comfortable as they move towards kind of their truly golden years, that kind of thing.
So when you do the calculations for that, and I've always been curious about this, when you do the calculations for, like, say, retirement, like, do you just pick an age? Like, hey, you're going to pass away around this time. Let's work backwards and see how much you need to live every year. How does that work?
It depends on what exactly we're looking at. But if you're doing a true analysis like that, it's called a Monte Carlo report. It runs 2,000 different scenarios out to age 95. And so when we have our true, like, and this is what my wife is, this is the big brain. This is the big brain stuff. This is why she does that part. But it's like a 25-page packet that we put together that literally takes all of your assets and says, hey, based on what you have, based on all these factors, the likelihood that you run out of money in your lifetime is this, based on all these other factors, right? You plug in factors and then just and builds it out. And then we it's usually a 2-hour presentation just to go through that. For people to understand it. It's a little bit different with military. On the military side, if you're a military retiree, we know your pension's coming in. If it doesn't, problems are, probably not just money at that point. VA, kind of the same thing. And then federal retirement, kind of the same thing. Now, all of those come from the same place. And then at age 62 or to 67, you're also going to have Social Security coming in at some point. So if I got any of my retired guys, like any of the gray hairs on here listening, we also do Social Security consults and stuff like that. If you just need help figuring out your Social Security stuff, feel free to reach out. We do that as a free service that we offer. But when you're to that point, you figure all those things. Those are all coming in. The only problem with that is they're all coming from the same place. That's potentially four retirement checks, right? VA, federal, military, Social Security, all coming from the same place. So if the country ever goes upside down, that's a big problem. But it's probably not the only problem. So it's a little easier for me because I know certain things are going to last until you pass away. But when we're doing somebody, it's like they come to us and they say, hey, Josh or Amanda, usually these are Amanda's clients. Amanda, I have, amassed $3.5 million over my career or whatever. How do we structure this? How do I make sure that I have, and that's why we use annuities as a portion of that, is so that they have guaranteed income for the rest of their life for a portion of that. And so we build that out, but that's still only a piece of it. And then you have to figure out, okay, what's your average spend? What's inflation going to do to that? What are your goals in retirement, right? And then for a true Monte Carlo report, it's out to age 95. When I'm doing, I do a hybrid IUL, index universal life thing for some folks, and we build that out to age 120. When I say it verifies for life, we do it out to age 120. That's a different product. But when I'm doing VGLI and SPP replacement, that's what I use if we're doing a true permanent, like we're not just using term insurance. We do a lot of term insurance too, but if somebody's doing permanent insurance, that's what we use. and then I use it to say that it's permanent insurance. I have to build it out to where we verify that it'll last out to age 120. We don't ever.
Why that age?
It's the longest anybody's ever lived.
So you got.
It's what the insurance company requires to use. But,
okay, so there's maybe like one or two people that have reached that age, so that is the standard now for it.
Well, that's what you have to in order to do it, and so of course, so that's what the insurance company tables go out to, and so I have to. They will show out to age 120. So I build to verify till age 120. I feel very confident then that I'm telling you if I'm talking to you about permanent life insurance, that I'm doing that. A lot of people, there's some folks that feel a certain way about it. Most of them just don't understand it or have only watched YouTube videos about how it's put together and stuff. And I do it a wholly different way. I work with the best company in the life insurance industry for that product specifically. And so that's one where it can be, because when we're replacing SBP, right, which is something like VGLI and SBP is what I do a lot of. And SBP, one of the factors of that we're trying to replace isn't just, oh, let's get you the premium on a 30-year term. If you outlive that term, then, you outlive it. But in SBP, you would never outlive it. Theoretically, it would just be to your spouse until they passed away if you passed before them as the veteran. And so for me to feel good about what I'm doing, there's no requirement to do this, but for the permanence factor, because SBP is around, it doesn't have an expiration date. Then I build those specifically for that, so that it's not apples to apples, but it is it's the same length. Whereas a 30-year term, you get a 30-year term when you're 35 or 40 years old. If you live beyond 65 or 70, that term has an expiration date, and that's a good thing. You didn't die before you were 65 or 70, but there's nothing on the back end. And so that's why I use that. But so I use that out to age 120. The Monte Carlo report goes out to age 95. If you have assets and you want to do the Monte Carlo report thing, hit me up, and I am going to CC you on an email with my wife, and you'll get set up with a meeting with her. But that's a deep dive into assets looking at longevity. We see that a lot with our non-military or government affiliated clients. Because a lot of times they leave with their 401k and that's what they got. There's no, the pension system doesn't exist in America the way that it used to. And that's why annuities, you can use them like a personal pension. You put, let's say you have 500,000 in cash or in a TSP or something, you roll it into that. Well, then you can grow it. And then if you want to use it for income at any point, you just turn on the income and they pay you a set amount for the rest of your life every month.
Hell yeah. So Josh, man, I want going back to the other two that we're missing, the other two questions. I don't know if you had a chance to, we were doing some back and forth. So if you had a chance to kind of think about those, what are the next, well, let me preface it with this. You have 5 years until you retire. What are Josh's top 3 moves before you retire?
So eliminate debt. I'm going to stack cash to a certain degree. And I say that for reasons, right? Probably up to the $25,000, $30,000 mark if you can. Because if you've retired in the last 10 years or you're getting ready to retire, you go through the transition process. It's different for everybody, but there's a lot going on. You go, right, you're the most senior you've ever been in the military. You're probably the busiest you've ever been, coming out of the job that's worked you the hardest. And then you're going to hit this transition phase, and you got appointments and you got things going on. And then you have your ceremony, and then it's pretty abrupt. It's just kind of fades. And you got your leave and you're still getting paid. And then you're through your terminal leave or your transition leave. And then we hit that magic date, get your last paycheck, and then they withhold that last one. And they hold it so they can do an audit. And I've seen people talk about it. Mine was pretty quick. I feel like it was a couple of weeks, maybe. But I've seen people 90 days for them to get. And so there's a period there. I would bring that up. So I say stack cash, and you put it wherever, but you got access to specifically for the retirement transition period. So that while you're waiting, because you will get your last paycheck and you will get your first retirement paycheck, and you'll get your VA eventually. But to cover that period in between, because you're also retiring, and you're going to want to take a deep exhale. I meet with so many people in the retirement transition window on either side of it. There's a lot of anxiety about the next job most of the time. And just being honest, after I've been doing this for 4 years, a lot of people worry about, what am I going to do? What's my income going to look like? Am I prepared for that? And so if you've got $20,000, $30,000 that you earmarked for this transition period, you might be able to take a vacation and actually enjoy it. As you retire, it's a big deal to retire from the military. It's a huge deal. You served your country, and you deserve. You want to go to Hawaii with the kids, or go wherever, whatever it is. Go and have a good time without having to be in the back of your mind. Can I afford to be here? Oh God, I got to get on LinkedIn and find this job. All that stuff, because that's what I've learned is that's everybody. That's senior officers. That's retiring E6s, and everybody in between. A lot of anxiety around that. And so give yourself some breathing room. That way you don't have to put it on a credit card, or you have to delay celebrating your retirement. But then you get the job, and now you got to work up some time off, some paid vacation or whatever it is. And you're just right back into the cycle, and you never got a chance to breathe out. So that's another one. So that'd be my next one would be stack some cash. And to the degree that you can, 10, 20, 30K, because, and based on your lifestyle, adjust, but if you live in an area that's high cost of living or something, you can go through $10,000 in a month pretty quickly. And so that would be one of them. And then the third one would be get a sense, right? I meet with people in all ranges, but I would say sit down with somebody like me, a professional, earlier than later for multiple reasons. Be honest with yourself about your financial standing, understand where you're at. Sometimes it helps just to have a unbiased perspective. Get your spouse involved. If you have a spouse, make sure that they're involved in planning and understanding things too. Don't take it all on yourself. And we meet with people for free. So you find somebody like me that meets with people for free. How do I make money? I make money when I do financial transactions with the big companies. And so you establish that relationship. You start taking care of things, whether it's life insurance well before you start the transition period. And I know, Vic, you covered this a couple of times on the show, but get that stuff in line, and whether it's with me or anybody else, just do it and get it taken care of as long as you can afford it, well before you start your medical process on the way out. Because that is going to, right, those two things are mutually exclusive. The interest of your VA rating and life insurance company rating are mutually exclusive. We're not trying to fib to either one, but if you have your life insurance in place first, you're going to get a better rating. It's going to be cheaper. And then when you do it after your VA stuff, and they ask a whole bunch more questions because they're like, we see here that you went for this. Can you tell us more about that? So that's the other one. Sit down with a financial professional. Life insurance, BGLI, SBP, have a plan for that stuff so that it's not a decision you have to make on the spot. Even your TSP, you can talk about things and build a trusting relationship with someone before you ever execute. A trusting professional relationship before you ever execute the financial side of the house. It'll feel a lot better for you. You'll understand what you're doing. You'll be, instead of worried about these things, you'll be the person when you're going to tap saying, hey, I remember this. I got a guy you got to talk to or whatever. It will make it feel a lot better. So those would be my big three things from the financial side is get rid of debt as fast as you can. And that's at any point in your career, but really that last 5 years, save up some money and start getting your financial strategy in place.
Yeah, no, those are excellent. Mine probably mirror yours, really. The debt one was big. The stack cash, I mean, that's always kind of been in the back of my mind because I've always kind of been tracking that, kind of frugal, and wanting to make sure that I have something on the back burner just in case, because you never know what's going to happen, right?
Yep.
So that's always been the case. And then sit down with somebody and talk, talk about where you really are. Just be humble and if you're having some troubles, financial troubles, actually sit down with somebody who can give it to you straight, not BS you, right? Hey, like I'm struggling a little bit here. What do I do? Where can I be? Um, and I think back to again, this goes back to Facebook posts somebody had put on there, and I want to find it and send it to you, Josh. Um, Said I'm going to be retiring, and this is not military retirement. This is like 60-year-old retirement. Going to be retiring in the next 5 years. Been into the G fund for so long, for all this time. What can I do now? Like, what are my options? Had like $10,000 saved, something like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish they would have thought of this before, and not like at 60 years old when they're about to retire in like 5-7 years, and they got 10,000, 15,000 to their name. Like, you're going to be working for a while, unfortunately.
Yeah. I had one of my clients that hit me one time with, Josh, I feel like I'm gonna have to work till I die.
That's hard to hear, man.
It's really hard. And that's one where mathematically they were probably right. And until they just couldn't anymore. But even then, it was going to be family or somebody taking care of them. They weren't going to be able to be independent and that kind of stuff. And so, again, why do I do this? Is to help people avoid that any way that we can. That's why I say start getting a sense of it 5 years out. It may seem excessive to somebody. I'm not retiring for 5 years. Like, I'm not worried about that. 5 years, as we all know, in the military goes by pretty quick, even though the days can be very, very long. And when you get to the X, right, like if you didn't learn anything else in the military, you learn how to prepare. And you always know when you're prepared to get to the target, then actions on the target are a lot easier, or it may not be easier, but you're at least prepared for them.
Yeah, absolutely. We got some comments here. Sergeant Stacking, I know Sergeant Stacking feels that too, man. It's a hard pill to swallow. Work till you die, man. That's why you get with a finance pro, so you don't have to, like, early on, so you don't have to be in that situation. We got a Navy cop here. I don't even see the prospect of retiring at this point. It does suck to come to that realization. And then we got Gunnery Sergeant here. He said, which financial review can I sign up for? So I guess that's a good segue, Josh, if you want to share some of your information on how these folks can get a hold of you, just in case if they have any questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is hit up one of two places is the easiest. My LinkedIn page. I've got a link directly to my calendar on there.
I'm going to share it in the comments here.
And then our website as well. And so our website is the name of our company, MVMTFinancial.com. We recently redid the whole thing. We did we take a look every year, and this year my wife and I decided we wanted to freshen up everything. So you can see there, it's a very intuitive menu of options there. But if you go to just about any page has a send us an email link on there, or contact us email. And so if you don't see exactly what you're looking for, look in there. I promise you, if you send an email, we will reach out to you immediately. And there you go. See, you can see right there on the front page, book a free financial review. That'll get it started. We'll sit down and talk about what you're there for if it doesn't sound like. But you can click that and it's going to pull up more than likely just our calendar page. Actually, not more than likely. It's going to pull up our calendar, and you'll book there. Pick a time that works for you. You can message me on LinkedIn if you don't see something that works. All of it. There you go. So there you go. And you can do that, all the stuff. And if it's just to talk or something like that, do a retirement roadmap. It's very easy. All of our stuff is designed to be easy. Our website is designed to be a tool. It's not the end all be all. And it's, you'll hear me say it a lot, but it's really the details matter. Your details matter more than anything. And we take your details and then we apply financial knowledge and really financial tools that are appropriate for your situation. But we're happy to talk with anybody, no matter what you got going on. You'll never see on my page anywhere. I only work with so many. You go to a lot of financial advisors pages and they say, oh, you have to have at least $1 million net worth before we'll take you on as a client. Sorry, guys, that's not how I operate. I don't care if you got a $0 net worth. We can sit down and chop it up because I firmly believe that putting good out in the world, which means working with people, allows us to be successful in business. And that way, and that's how we do things. Now, we committed to that a long time ago and we stayed true to it to this day.
Excellent, man. So from one veteran to the veteran community, that's Josh Cantrell from MVMT Financial. Good information all around. And I love that. 5 things that you would do, 3 things you would do: no debt, stack cash, sit down with a financial pro, is Josh's route that he would take if he had 5 years towards retirement. Josh, man, is there anything that I haven't asked you that maybe you want to cover real quick?
No, I think we've covered everything in depth. I just want to say thanks. Thanks for having me on. As Vic mentioned, I'm a sponsor of the show, but more than that, I'm a fan of the show. This and the Military Retirement Podcast and so I know the folks that are on here know this, but spread the good word. I think what you do is incredible. I think bringing information at the real human being level to our veteran community is important. So just keep on keeping on, brother.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on here. And Navy Cop says he's been hosting a link to MVMT Financial for a few months now, emailed for more info. So he's going to reach out to you here shortly.
Awesome.
He runs buddycheckproject.org. Navy Cop does. So a great resource for veterans out there. Josh, man, it was great having you, buddy. And feel free to jump on any other time, dude. I always learn something new. Like I said, I always have a whole page of notes and stuff that I'm writing based on all the info that you're giving out. I really do appreciate you coming on and making me just 1% smarter today, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Everybody have a fantastic Valentine's and President's Day weekend. Vic, I'll see you later, bro.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you. All right. That was Josh from MVMT Financial. Great stuff. A lot of stuff that I wish I had connected with somebody like Josh when I was younger, going through my military career. It wasn't until my 10-year mark where I actually started getting smart on things. And it's just the fact that you don't know what you don't know, right? People don't tell you these things. My leadership never really took me aside and talked to me about money or anything like that. My parents really didn't, so it's kind of up to me to, through successes and failures, through the trial and error thing, to find out myself. So ultimately glad to connect with somebody like Josh who knows what the heck he's talking about. Don't fall for folks on different platforms who maybe you can't trust. I trust Josh, Army retired, 21 years, he knows what he's talking about. So excellent stuff. Quick shout out to, let's see who we got here. Go into the comments real quick. Navy Cop, of course, thank you for joining. Yeah, two divorces, he's not wrong. There we go. Not turning back, 84. Law, it could be cheaper to keep her. Yeah, that's what they say. That's what my gunny pulled me aside when I was going to get married to my wife. And that was his words of wisdom, his sage wisdom, right? That's exactly what he told me. Let's see here. 66T Love, welcome back. I would dread being a young person starting out in life right now. It is tough. But what we can do, I mean, if anybody out there has younger kids, I got some myself, all you can do is educate them, steer them in the right direction, get them involved with financial planning. For the longest time, I thought, we don't talk about finances, until I started to talk about finances openly with my family. And then it became a thing. Like we openly talk about it, hey, this is a good decision. This is not a good decision. My kids will come and ask me about it. I'll give them my thoughts. Ultimately, I'll tell them, hey, it's your birthday money, Christmas money, do whatever you want with it. But here's what could happen. Here's what could be if you put it away, if you save it, blah, blah, blah. So it's just a matter of educating them. That's it. U.S. Army Grunt, welcome back, dude. I wish I had that feel back in my day. Yeah. Yeah, Gunnery Sergeant, if you're asking which financial review can I sign up for, yeah, I'd say connect with Josh, man. He's, we just had him on the show. He knows what he's talking about, and he'll steer you in the right direction. Let's see who we got here. Yeah, same thing. Gunnery Sergeant, keep jumping in and out. May have missed it. Which financial review can I ask for retired, second career? It depends on what your options are. And as Josh said, if you just want to talk about what your options are, choose a retired one, and then go from there, and then they'll steer you in the right direction. Either way, all roads lead to Josh and MVMT Financial. So he can talk to you about those. Raider HQ, man, welcome back, dude. Raider HQ, I sent you back an email, dude. So please check that and let me know. He says, I'm enjoying the content. Well, I am enjoying you enjoying the content, my man. Very important information. It is, dude, because at some point in time, you want to be able to retire. You want to be able to hang it up and enjoy your time, travel around, go out to eat, whatever. And some folks can't. And it starts young. It starts while you're, younger. Well, 660 love. I appreciate it. Thank you, Raider XQ. I'll check it out. I appreciate you. Well, that is what I got for today's Green Logbook live stream. We had Josh on, Josh Cantrell from MVMT Financial. Talked a lot about finances, military veteran finances. MVMT stands for mission, vision, money, time. Very fitting. Awesome. So with that, if y'all got anything else for me, please let me know. If you got my email, reach out to me. Let me know what you got going on. If you know somebody who may be a good guest for the show, let me know. Any nonprofits, any business leaders, anything like that, veterans, killing the game out there, doing good things in the business world, in the entrepreneurship world, in the nonprofit world, let me know. thegreenlogbook@gmail.com. And with that, let's see here. Today is Friday. Tomorrow is Valentine's Day, as Josh mentioned. I already went out and got my flowers. I hope you all did too, if you celebrate it. If not, then all good. But I will be live on Sunday morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time on the Military Retirement Podcast. You can still catch it on here on the Green Logbook. I just stream to all channels. Like right now, I'm streaming to the Green Logbook and Military Retirement Podcast. But you can catch me here, the Green Logbook, and we'll kick it off then. And Navy Cop. Let's see here. Quick side question. What do you use to edit your other videos? Which other videos are we talking about? Standing by. I use a couple of editing things. Depends on how I'm feeling that day. Just Navy Cop, you can get with me offline if you would like. The military started doing some financial training. Excellent. It should be, dude, in my opinion, it should be mandatory to do financial training. It's a big reason why I think a lot of veterans, even folks who leave the service after 4 years, after one enlistment, two enlistment, they start off on the wrong foot. A lot of folks are homeless. A lot of folks, have troubles finding jobs and things like that. And we have that. If they're starting financial classes, that's a step forward in the right direction. They should even start it in elementary school, really talking about finances. Like, hey, part of the math class should be about talking about future finances and how to save your money and how to not get into debt and things like that. Let me see. At least the CG started requiring it. Excellent, man. CG's on the right foot. And there were Marines in my class as well. Awesome. Yeah, Marines, we don't do well with numbers, man. So unless it's like how many clicks it takes, or millimeters and things like that, we don't do well with numbers. So any help we can get. That's why I'm not giving this class. I didn't give the financial management talk. I had to reach out and connect with Josh to be able to do that. That ain't me. It's not my lane. All right, Navy Cop, I see you'll email me. I appreciate you, buddy. All right, with that, I got to take off here. I've been sucking down this water for I don't know how long, but gotta go. Sunday, catch me 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll talk on there on the Military Retirement Podcast. This has been the Green Logbook. Make sure you like and subscribe. Do it. Do all the things. Go.